day of the event. And I hope that this event is now very good and you get more information about your higher studies and the pathway that you have to go through on know your higher studies. So it's my pleasure to welcome our alumni, Mr. Abishaik Mohan. Abishaik Mohan is a current graduate student in Information System Management at Carnegie Mellon University. He graduated from SVCE as a gold medalist in 2019 and joined Extreme Networks as a platform quality engineer. Uh, at Extreme, he worked for almost 3 years in enterprise networking and cloud domains, leading the feature qualification of layer 2 and layer 3 functionalities in the Extreme operating system. Additionally, he has worked on Docker and Kubernetes, mobile and web frameworks, and explores new technology in his free time. And I would also like to add that Abhishek Mohan is one of our proud alumni, and he was continuously getting the CTS scholarship, which is rendered by CTS. So it's a very proud moment. So happy to welcome you, Abhishek Mohan, for this event.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you. Hope the participants have a good time. Whatever queries you have, just post it in the message, or you can know free to contact Abhishek Mohan. So over to Jana sir.
Thank you, madam. Thanks for your introduction.
Thank you,
Now
Jana
I
sir.
request Abhishek Mohan to take over the session.
okay. So let me share my screen right now.
அபிஷேக் உங்களுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி மாத்திக்கோங்க லேஅவுட்டை.
Sure, sir. Sure. So, hi everyone. Very good evening, and thanks for joining this webinar. So today we'll be looking at some of the guidelines while applying for universities in the US. So one thing I would like to get straight away right here is that most of the information which I'm gonna say is already available on the internet, right? So mostly I'll be talking about the nuances involved in applying to these universities, as well as some of my experiences involved in applying to these universities. So feel free to have your doubts cleared. I feel this should be more interactive because it's more of getting your doubts cleared. And so feel free to post your questions in the chat as well. I'll actively take them up in the middle. So this is what we'll be looking at shortly today. We'll be looking at why masters in the US, some of the test requirements, admission myths, which is a very interesting topic. How you can probably go about shortlisting your program in university. Some of the mistakes in SOP, work opportunities and accommodation for students who have already secured admits for the universities. So before talking about why masters in the US, I briefly wanted to touch upon this very, very important topic, which is why should you even do masters, right? There's this famous quote by Abraham Lincoln: if I had only 1 hour to chop down a tree, I would spend first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. This quote is very relevant for students who are applying for a master's program, right? It's very important for you to think about the outcome which you wish to do after the masters. The reason why I'm stressing this on this so much is because I've seen many people just go abroad for the sake of going. There isn't a clear goal as to why they are going. So you will be spending ton of your money, energy, and everything, and you want to have it done fruitfully. So some outcomes you might want to consider why you want to do a master's is because you might wish to graduate with a very in-depth knowledge of a overall or a specific domain, which is typically what you gain in a master's program. You might want to develop independent research skills on thinking on complex issues, which is what you'll get in a PhD. Or you might want to gain an overall knowledge of how a business administration works in general, which is your MBA. So it is really important to think about this, and this will also reflect on your SOP. While writing your statement of purpose, right, you have to clearly convey why you're even applying to this program and what you wish to do after this. So rather than just going about doing it, you have to clearly think about the outcome which you wish to do after your master's. So let's talk about why masters in US. So there are many countries, right? But why do students mostly prefer United States? The first is the flexibility and customization of programs, right? So you have many programs available. You, apart from your typical MS, PhD, and MBA, you have a ton of other degree programs such as Master in Public Policy, Master of Social Work. You have a lot of programs, and even if you choose a very, very unconventional program, you can still take a lot of. There is a lot of flexibility in choosing the courses as well. So it's not like even if you choose a particular degree, you are constrained to taking only courses relevant to that degree. So this flexibility may not be offered by universities in other countries, right? So this is very important reason why masters is preferred in US. The second is the cutting edge research and facilities. So once you come here, you'll be working in projects that are almost changing the world, literally changing the world, right? So that is one of the very big advantages you get to work here. Most of the university labs are well equipped with resources, and you'll be working on good research projects. The third, which is also a very important one, is exposure to diverse perspectives, right? United States is home to a lot of people from other countries. For example, my batch involves students from Iran, South Africa, Zimbabwe, lot of wide variety of people from there. So your perspectives get shaped up. You get to see a particular problem through a different lens, which is very important in developing your mindset. So diverse perspectives is another important reason. And fourth, the personal growth, which is my favorite one. I have experienced a lot of personal growth after coming here. Especially, I learned some cooking and doing some household activities only after coming here, while I was a bit lazy back in India. So personal growth is something which is also, not just US, where when you relocate to other countries, that also is very helpful perspective to look at. And fifth is the strong alumni network. So most US universities have strong alumni networks. So whichever field you venture into after your master's, right, be it software engineering, be it electrical engineering, be it entrepreneurship, be it business management, you'll mostly find alumni who has done his master's or abroad studies in US. So as you can see from the data on the right, most 72% of international student population comes from Asia, right? And mostly these are peer students from China and India. China is the first country which sends a huge amount of students, and second one is India. So again, feel free to post your questions in the chat. I'll actively take them up in the middle, as well as we'll have a separate Q&A at the end. So feel free to have your doubts cleared, and feel free to directly speak up as well. So let's look at various options. So apart from your MS, MBA, PhD, students also have these options, graduate certificates. So this is something which you can do from the remote, where you can gain specialized knowledge in a particular domain, such as AI or mechanical engineering, any domain within mechanical engineering or any subdomains. So the advantage it has is that it has fewer credits than traditional masters. And fewer credits in the sense you needn't take a huge amount of exams which you typically do in your master's program. But every coin has two sides in it. So although this is the advantage, it also has disadvantages, such that you might not be able to come and work in the US if you wish to, right? So that is the big disadvantage since you're doing it remote. The second one is called Master of Engineering. So this is more on the applied aspects of engineering, applied practical aspects more rather than research. And you'll also get to take some leadership courses, which is useful for if you are especially looking for industry-oriented roles. The third is the Doctor of Engineering. It's a terminal degree. And the difference between Doctor of Engineering and PhD is that PhD is more focused on theoretical research and academic research, whereas Doctor of Engineering is more of research applied in industry. So you have a lot of roles, right, such as Microsoft Research India, Google Research India. You also get to take a lot of leadership courses along this in this course as well, which will be helpful in the industry. And finally, you have your dual degree programs, MS plus MBA, MS plus Master of Engineering, which is typically good to apply after a good amount of work experience. So you can even complete these 2 degrees in 2 years, right? One year for MS, 1 year for MBA. So many universities offer this dual degree programs, and it's useful to complement your technical knowledge with business knowledge here as well. Now, so let's look at the test requirements if you have to apply for universities in the US. So first is the GRE. So there is nothing much to be said here. I am sure most of your students will be knowing what GRE is. It's basically a test where you have to cover your mathematical, verbal, and essay writing skills. So a few things which I would like to clear here is that it's just an entry ticket to consider your application, right? No university will be dumb enough to reject just basis of your GRE score. So don't stress about it too much. If you get a low score, you must probably try retaking it or try retaking it, but you should not stress that much, because when I was applying, right, many students felt that, oh, my GRE score is low, they might not consider me. While good GRE score certainly does help, it's not like they will totally reject your application on just basis of GRE. And one more thing is this optional thing. So optional thing is something which has been becoming relevant recently with the start of COVID. So what I would like to convey here is, you can, if you send your scores, it will be considered, and if you don't send your scores, it won't be considered. That is it. There is nothing much to it. I found many students getting confused about this. If there's optional, should I send my score or not? Should I not send my score or not? No. If you send in your scores, it will be considered. So ensure to send in your good scores. And if you do not score well, probably you have two options. Probably you have to ensure that your the rest of your profile is looking good. It is strong enough to consider. And second one is obviously try retaking it. That is another way to go. So in my case, what happened was, CMU mentioned that GRE was optional, but it was strongly recommended. But still, I didn't send in my GRE scores because I felt that my other parts of profile were a bit good. So that's why I didn't send my GRE scores. But I wouldn't typically recommend doing that. If you do get good scores, I would suggest you to send in, because that will also be considered as part of your application. The second one is TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. Again, only two things are very important here for admission purposes. Once you cross the minimum requirements, right, no one cares about it. Literally, no one cares about once you cross the minimum requirements. And minimum requirements is typically 100, right? So for admissions perspective, it is enough if you cross just the minimum requirements. But when it comes to applying for TA and RA positions, which is called teaching assistant and research assistant positions, which we'll be also talking about briefly, good scores are important, because I've seen many of my friends come here and give an English test, separate English test for while they apply for these positions. Or it sometimes might be the case that students have taken some other proficiency test which might not be recognized by the university. So in those cases, you have to retake some English exam here. Then you have your IELTS and Duolingo proficiency tests. Some universities accept them, some do not accept them. I would say the recommended and safe option is TOEFL. And in general, TOEFL is a bit more considered here than IELTS or Duolingo. So I would say just go about giving your TOEFL. It does take a good amount of preparation, but it's definitely not too hard once you have studied for your GRE. Right. All right. So before talking about the types of universities, are there any questions so far? I can pause for a couple of minutes and see if there are any questions from students. So feel free to post your questions or just speak up directly.
Dear students, if you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, you can continue.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any questions so far. I'll probably continue, and we can also see in the middle if questions come.
Okay, Abishaik, you can continue.
Okay, sir. So mainly you can see that there are two types of universities for graduate admissions. When it comes to undergrad education, there are multiple other divisions like community colleges, liberal art colleges. But when it comes to graduate education, you can see mostly it is categorized into public university and private university. So public university is something which is funded by state government. The fees is typically low. As you can see, there are a good amount of universities in the public space as well as very good universities in the private space as well. UCLA, Berkeley, Michigan, all come under public universities, and some private universities such as Carnegie Mellon, Dartmouth, Columbia, a lot of private universities. So this is the advantage, right? You have a lot of good schools here in the US, but whereas when you compare it to Canada or Germany, there is typically less number of universities. So typically the competition tends to be high, right? Imagine some 1,000 students applying for 10 universities in Canada and 1,000 students applying for 20 to 30 good universities in the US. It's a bit distributed, right? Okay, so let's talk about the average cost of attending the university. As you can see, the data on the left is your total expenses. Again, it's an average, right? So there are outliers here. you have to check the university website for their tuition fee as well as the total cost, expected total cost. There are a lot of outliers, in fact. Depends on the location, a lot of other factors are there. But if you look at average, on the left hand side, this is the average cost of attending the university, including your living expenses. And on the right hand side is the tuition fee for a particular program, right? As you can see, private colleges will cost you huge more than compared to public colleges. Uh, Only in terms of tuition, right? Only in terms of tuition, but in terms of location, they might be very expensive. So private colleges come close to $57,000, which roughly translates to 45 to 50 lakhs, right? This is the average. And if you look at the tuition fee, and that comes close to $40,000, which roughly translates to 32 to 35 lakhs. So this is the cost which you will get if you attend private college, especially the tuition fee, right? And you can see public colleges do cost very less when compared to private colleges in terms of tuition. But again, it depends on the location. Locations such as San Francisco, Boston, these are all very expensive, right? And locations such as Pittsburgh or Texas, in fact, these are all a bit cheap. So there is a balance here, and it's important to check the university website properly for an expected cost. And then you have in-state colleges and out-of-state colleges. In-state college is something, it is not very relevant to us. Basically, in-state public colleges means if you are a resident of that state, and if you choose to attend university in that state, you have to pay less. Whereas if you are attending any university which is outside of your state, which you are not a resident of, you have to pay more. So this is the distinction between them. So let me talk about the admission myths. So I see if one question in the chat. Let me just answer it quickly. I have secured admission MSc. Could you give some idea about scholarship? Yes, this is a very good question. I'll probably take it up in the upcoming lectures, upcoming slides. So scholarship is something, there is a university provided scholarship as well. There is also private scholarships, which we'll be talking about briefly. So let's talk about the admission myths. So this is a very interesting topic, right? When you're applying for universities, there are a lot of doubts in your mind. If you might not have a proper resource to get it validated. So before talking about this admission myths, I would like to ask you students, what do you think some of these myths could be? Do you think let's just try taking a wild guess, and we can see how relevant it is to what I have it. So feel free to post your thoughts in the chat as well, if you have anything. Okay, no thoughts. Okay, I'll probably get ahead. So the first common myth is that life is so beautiful during masters, right? This is one of the most common myths, from students applying to US universities. You might have seen pictures like the New York City skyscraper, or wild students going on wild trips. But this is not the reality. The reality is completely 180-degree opposite of it, right? You obviously, these some of your free time will be spent exploring US and everything, but most of the time it's hard academic rigor, right? Sometimes the programs are so intense and rigorous that you might not even have time to study. I mean, not even have time to bath or eat. So it's that challenging. So I want you to be mentally prepared, right? I want you to be mentally prepared. If that is the case, you should not expect that will be very easy going. The second one is that university ranking is extremely important for job opportunities, right? This is also a wrong assumption by many students. As Indians, we do have that ranking mentality, but it's totally absent in the US. There is no such thing as university ranking plays an important role for job opportunities. In fact, I would say location is more important than any rankings here. If you are probably close to California or Silicon Valley, you have access to a lot of tech hubs right there. But if you are located very far away, that might be a bit difficult. But since recruitment is global, you needn't really worry about that as well. So university ranking hardly matters for any job opportunity. The third one is your GRE TOEFL scores determining admission in a university, right? So this is again a very false assumption, which we also saw before. No university will just plainly accept you or plainly reject you on basis of your GRE scores, GRE or TOEFL scores. And fourth one is that you must have a certain GPA to get into a good program. So I see many students thinking that you must have some 8.5 GPA or 8 GPA is enough to get into a program. No, that is again just one very small part of your application, right? So I also had the opportunity of being once in a CMU's review committee, and these factors are very hardly looked at. I mean, it's certainly good to have a good GPA, but definitely it doesn't mean that if you are low, but provided that your other parts of profile are looking good, there are no chances, nothing like that. So it's not like you must have some GPA, some predefined GPA which will get you into a program. And obviously there are some universities that are GPA centric. So you must, and if you have a low GPA, you must make sure that you are not applying to those universities, right? That is also very important. So research is very important when you're applying for universities. Fifth myth is that you must have ton of research papers to get into a thesis program. So while good publications in good venues will certainly boost your profile, and in fact, out of all the other factors, having good research paper is one of the very important signs of a graduate student, especially for a thesis program, right? So it is important to have good publications in good venues, but it's not certainly a mandatory part of requirement, right? MS is a place where universities recognize that students are beginning to get into research. So it's not a mandatory part, but it certainly helps you stand out from the crowd as well. The sixth myth, and this might surprise many of you, is that you might be thinking SOP is the most critical component of your application, right? To be honest, it's not really. It is certainly very, very important to have a very good SOP, but again, it is not going to determine your admission in a university. It's also not the most critical component at all, because admissions committee know that students can write stories. It is very easy, and it easily comes across as well, right? With tools such as Chat GPT and everything, this has become a lot easier. Writing stories has become a lot easier. So university admissions committee know that students tend to write story. That is the reason why they also check your LORs, right? That is the reason why they also check your LORs. And so SOP is not the deal breaker in your admissions decision, right? While having a very good SOP is very important, it's not the only criteria again. The seventh one is that work experience will help boost your profile, right? So I'll also briefly talk about where work experience will be valuable. But certainly, imagine you're applying to your research program, say a thesis program, and you have your work experience in totally unrelated area. So that will totally not help in any way, right? That will totally not help in any way. But if you are applying for a thesis program and you have done research work, you're doing research work in a company, that will certainly help, because that is a direct correlation, right? So that is how that will help. But if you are working in a totally unrelated area, that doesn't help, right? So where does work experience actually become valuable? So work experience helps you give new perspective, right? So for example, if you consider my case, if I had done my master's immediately after my undergrad, right, I would have probably taken MS in CS. But working in industry for almost 3 years gave me a different perspective. It helped me think, it helped me steer my MS program choice as well, because I found that I was more interested into the management aspects. So that is how work experience will be valuable to you. So I would say having a good amount of work experience, 2 to 3 years is really good before you apply for your masters, because it also gives you financial stability, right? And it might also help you shape your perspectives as well. So this is how work experience will be helpful for your while applying. Now talking about the program and university selection. So as we saw before, there are a lot of degree programs available out there, but generally students typically tend to apply for MS, PhD, or programs such as MIS, Master of Engineering, MEM, or MBA, right? So MS with research is a good start for students who are looking for an academic or a research oriented career. So again, not all MS programs have thesis component. You have to check your program's curriculum. right? This is where you get to work as a research assistant in your last semester, or complete thesis along with your graduation requirement. So this is a good start. And if even if you're considering to apply for PhDs, so this is also a very good option, MS with research, which will typically be helpful when you're applying for your PhD. MS without research is for students who are mainly looking to get into industry without much focus on research, right? They are looking to get into the more practical aspects, right? Yeah, just get done with the program and just get into the university, just get into the industry with some technical skills upgraded or some leadership skills learned, right? Then you have your PhDs, which is also possible to directly apply from undergrad, but you have to show that you have sufficient and high quality research experience, right? Good international internships will help you get into the PhD programs. This is directly shows that you have good research experience, and that becomes valuable when you're doing your PhD, right? And then you have your information systems management, master of engineering and engineering management programs. So I would say these are all more of a bridge programs, between a pure MS and a pure MBA. So this has one big advantage, that you get to take both technical courses as well as business courses, right? You are not just constrained with taking pure technical courses, nor you're constrained with doing pure business courses. You not want to leave your engineering background behind, and but you might want to learn, explore business courses. So these are all very good options. And then you have your MBA, which is typically good to apply after 4 to 6 years of good professional experience. So you will gain a very good understanding of how business administration works. And you have you have select tracks within MBA as well: entrepreneurship, product management, a lot of other tracks. So if you have good sufficient work experience, you can certainly go ahead with an MBA. But if you feel that you don't have sufficient work experience, but you also want to explore business courses, you can probably also apply for this bridge programs, which are very good choices. So yeah, one more important thing when it comes to university selection, right? As we saw before, rankings don't really matter. University rankings don't really matter because they are dependent on a lot of factors. They are dependent on the international student ratio, the amount of research work going on there, the funding it receives. There are a lot of factors involved. So it doesn't really make sense to look at the university rankings, but you can probably try checking the department rankings, right? US News is a good website which you can use to check department rankings. So say if you're applying for MS and CS, right, you can check MSCS rankings for each university, how it ranks. So that is a good indicator of where the program stands, right? So if it's a good ranking, you can probably certainly go ahead and apply for it. So, and I've also seen students, when they apply for MS programs, they do something called as ambitious list, moderate list, and safe list, right? This is typically a good way of going about it. The amount of university you apply really doesn't matter, but I would say anything more than 9 or 10 is too much, right? You are not prioritizing it properly. So anything more than 9 or 10 is really very high, right? So it's anything within that or 9 or 10 is a good option. So 333 is a good way to go about it. So before talking about the application packet, if you guys have any doubts, we can answer that. I see there's only still one question, which was about scholarship so far. Apart from that, I don't see any other questions. So feel free to post your questions. We can take them up in the middle as well. So, all right. So let me talk about the application packet. So this is how your application packet will be evaluated once admissions committee starts reviewing it. So I just once got to be a part of the review committee here at CMU. So this is typically how it gets evaluated. So your test scores are seen, right? Your GRE and TOEFL scores, and then you will have your academic fit. So basically, in the academic fit, your SOP will be seen as to what your interests are and whether it aligns with the program you have applied. So this is what academic fit is about. And then you have your letters of recommendation, statement of purpose, and then you have your work research experience. So if you're applying for research programs, thesis programs, your research experience becomes valuable. And if you're applying for a professional program such as your MBA, right, your work experience becomes valuable. Again, it has to be relevant work experience. working in an unrelated area won't help you boost your profile that much, right? And then you have your extracurricular activities, and this is also, one of the very important areas where students don't give much thought to, but admissions committee greatly gives thoughts to extracurricular activities. So being a part of, being in a leadership position in a club, or founding an organization, these are all very important traits when it comes to your MS applications, but students do not give much thoughts to this. This is very important, right? And finally, you have your student diversity. You might be, asked to write diversity essays and everything. So this is more of a, a deal breaker. So provided the the profile of two candidates are similar, and they have a confusion as to which student to choose, they might look at your diversity essay, right? That's how this plays an important role. So this is typically the order in which your application packet will be evaluated, right? So it's important to have everything neatly and very well organized, in order to, get a coherent look when your application is seen. Okay, now let's talk about some of the statement of purpose mistakes which students make. So instead of talking about how to write your SOP and how to structure your SOP, this information are these are very easily available on the internet, right? So let's talk about the mistakes which students typically make when applying to these programs. So the number one big mistake is, do not ask chat GPT or anyone to write your SOP, right? This is a very important thing. And you needn't approach anyone to write your SOP. No one can write a story better than you. No one can write your story better than you. And it is a really bad idea to ask anyone to write your SOP. Uh, because, your story can only be conveyed by you properly and emotionally, right? If someone writes it, that emotional aspect won't be there, right? So it is very important that you yourself write it, and don't use any flowery language, right? With use of tools such as chat GPT and everything, this has become very easy. But again, admissions committee reviews thousands of applications every time, right? Every time. So this will easily come across. So don't try to do these things. The second mistake I've seen is that students do not align their story, their previous experiences, with how it fits into the program, right? So you might have done very good projects in your undergrad. You might have done very good projects as part of your courses. So you have to make sure that you're conveying a proper story which will show a fit into the program. So for example, let's say you have object oriented programming in your undergrad, right? And you have done some good project in it, and you have gotten a very good outcome out of it. And you also have your object oriented program in your object oriented course in your graduate program, right? You have to write it in such a way that your outcome will also you have to say it in such a way that your outcome will be helpful to the course in the graduate program as well, right? You have to show that fit. So the way you learned in this course in your undergrad, you have to show that you can also contribute more in your graduate program course, right? This is how you show your fit. And similarly, you might have done a lot of projects, right? It's important to write why you have done, right? Simply, instead of simply listing the project, you also have to list why you have done that project, right? That is the motivation in the first place. So admissions committee look for the motivation in you doing some task as well. It's not just like, oh, you have done this task, oh, that's very good. No, they also check for your motivation of doing that particular task, right? That says a lot about the character as well. The third mistake is listing tons of projects without showcasing what you learned. So showing how you applied your learnings is very important, right? So again, you might have gotten very good outcomes. You might have gotten very good outcomes out of it, and it might have been taken to a next level, right? But what did you learn in that? You have to specifically say what you learned in that. That is very, very important. And students typically just list, tens of projects without, showing what they learned. This is very bad, because this is, again, you are just reiterating your resume in your SOP. That is the very wrong approach of writing your SOP, right? You have to show what you learned. The fourth and very most important point is not convincing why this university, why this program, and why masters now. This is very, very important. And again, this relates to your second point, right? How it fits into the program. So you have to convincingly say that, this is the most preferred program out of all other programs you've applied. Simply saying that this is the best ranked university, this is the best ranked program won't help, right? That is not how you convince someone, right? You have to show what really motivates you to apply to this university out of all the other programs available, right? And one more important thing is why masters now. So you might be applying for your graduate program, you might be applying for graduate program immediately after your undergrad, or you might be applying after working for a few years. But it's important to say why you're applying right now, what motivates you to apply right now, what is your career direction. So they also want to see what you wish to do after your masters, right? So this is why I had stressed in the beginning that it's really important to think about the outcome you wish to do after masters. Writing your SOP becomes easy at this point. The fifth is, as we saw before, not giving much thought on extracurricular activities, right? Again, students do not tend to value this, but the admissions committee value this a lot, because extracurricular activities are places where you learn a lot of your social skills, lot of your interpersonal skills. These are all very important extracurricular activities rather than your academic activities, right? So if you come to US, or in fact in general in any other country, soft skills are very, very important, right? It's not just your technical skills or your academic skills. Soft skills are very important. So it's also important to pay thought and attention to these details in your SOP. The sixth one is completing SOP in one or two iterations with typos or grammatical mistakes. So this is a very easy way to get your SOP ruined, right? Very easy way. So you have to make sure that everything is perfect and polished, because once you submit, you cannot really change anything, right? So it's important to take a good amount of time. My SOP took almost 3 months to complete. I had to do a lot of iterations for every program I had applied to. So it's really important you take some time properly and complete it without any grammatical or spelling mistakes. And finally, not getting your SOP reviewed. So this is this is also very important, right? Students who are applying right now, you have to make sure that you reach out to people on LinkedIn. You have to students are definitely students who are currently doing their graduate program, they're definitely willing to help you and see or have a look at your resume and SOP. It's a good way to get it validated, right? A student who has already got an admission into the program and who has already graduated from the program or is currently doing it, right? They will help you provide more perspective whether it is fine or whether it's good enough, or you probably have to include more details into it. So you definitely have to get it reviewed from students who are currently pursuing that program. That's a good way to check whether you're in the right track or not. All right. So coming to the work opportunities, right? So work opportunities in the US are abundant, right? There are a lot of rules and regulations which you will easily know once you reach here. But for now, let's talk about some of them. So you have something called as part-time opportunities. So this is where your teaching, research, and graduate assistantships come valuable. So teaching, by working as a teaching assistant, you get a lot of valuable experience. You get to grade papers, you get to help professors shape the curriculum, and you also get to manage a lot of students in the class, right? That is also work of a TA. So these are all very helpful additions to your resume. And then you have your research assistantships. So working as a RA with a professor will help you work on very, very good projects, right? The projects which most professors are working in most universities are the very latest and very definitely literally world changing projects, literally. So these are all very important additions to your resume when you're applying for jobs after your masters. And then you have graduate assistants, and so there are various positions in the club or any organization. You can also go and try to apply for those positions, which is typically called as graduate assistantships. So these all provide valuable experience and helps manage your monthly expenses, right? So there is a hourly pay which varies from university to university. At CMU it is like $17 per hour, and this varies across a lot of universities. So under F1 visa, right, as a student in F1 visa, you'll be allowed to work maximum 20 hours per week during classes or 40 hours per week during breaks. You must not exceed these limits, so you have to be very careful to not exceed this limit. This is not any university guideline. This is more of a federal guideline which has to be adhered by all universities in the US. So it's maximum 20 hours per week during classes or 40 hours per week during breaks. And then you have CPT, which is commonly called as curricular practical training, or by universities such as Northeastern, they typically call it co-op, right? Co-op is also another term to refer these. So this is typically done during masters, nothing but internship, right? One additional rule, right, in US is that you have to be consecutively present for 2 semesters before you start an internship or before you start working off campus. That is also important. You must not work off campus once you immediately join in. That's not how it works, right? Unless it's a university sponsored work, you cannot work outside campus if you haven't been there for more than 2 semesters. So CPT is something which you do during your masters, typically through an internship. And so some internships usually start in May to August, and sometimes it continues for the whole year. So it really depends on the university again. And the main advantage of CPT is that it requires internship to be an integral part of curriculum. So it's based on the fact that you will be getting academic credits for your internship as well. So that is what is mainly CPT about, which is done during your master's. And finally, you have your OPT, which is optional practical training, and that is your full-time opportunity. Once you graduate from your master's, right, you have to apply for something called as OPT. You will be typically applying it during your last semester, and this allows you to work for 1 year, and this can be extended up to 2 more years, provided this is a STEM course. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's also very important when you're applying for graduate programs. You have to check whether it's STEM certified or not, because STEM certified courses have some advantages, such as this one, extending your OPT for 2 more years, whereas some courses do not have it all. MBA probably doesn't have that advantage, right? And so this must be approved by USCIS. So USCIS is nothing but United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and you must have a job offer related to your field of study, right? So coming to the question in the chat, Shruti, I have secured admission in CMU for embedded systems. Could you give some idea about the scholarship options and living expenses? So Shruti, this is first of all, congratulations on your admit. This is one of the ways you can manage your monthly expenses by working as a TARA or graduate assistantship. And you also, if your program is 16-month program or a 2-year program, you get to work in internships where you can, that's also a good way of earning some income right there. But commonly, apart from internships, you also get to work as teaching or research assistantships, where you can, gather a good amount of knowledge, as well at the same time help manage your monthly expenses. So that provides a decent way of helping manage your monthly expenses. So that's how it goes. Yes, and feel free to ask your doubts as well. We are almost coming close to the end, so it's really important to have your doubts cleared. So feel free to post it in the chat. All right, so talking about the accommodation, right, for students who have already secured admits, the number one thing you have to number one thing is obviously applying for the visa, but accommodation is also very important when it comes to traveling. So on-campus housing is typically tough for graduate students. These on-campus housings are typically reserved for undergrad students, right? But again, it depends on university to university. You have to check the university FAQs for that, whether they do provide or not. Best option is to move in with someone. So just in case some of your friends are moving to a particular university, you can try reaching out to them and asking them if they are moving or not. Or you can also try reaching out on Facebook housing groups for university. Each university will have Facebook housing groups, so you can put a public post saying that I'll be arriving on so and so date, my budget constraint is so and so, and I'm looking for this type of room, right? So someone from there will typically respond if anything is available. And one thing you have to make sure is that there are a lot of scams going on Facebook housing groups, right? So when I was applying, right, literally with whoever I spoke, literally was a scammer only, literally. So you have to make sure that you're not paying anything or not revealing any confidential information, right? It's important to directly talk with the person rather than just texting it, because we can't say whether it's true or not, right? So just make sure that you're not falling prey to any scams out there. Once you put a public post, someone will most probably reach out to you if a particular apartment is available under your constraints, right? And the third important point is that try staying within 2 miles of university. So ensure that bus connectivity is there. It should probably maximum take just 20 to 25 minutes through bus and not more than that, right? Don't stay 45 minutes away from university. That becomes really difficult if you have to come in the middle and leave out in the afternoon after having your lunch or something. So just make sure that you're residing close to the university as much as possible, right? That makes your life a bit easier as well. So there is also Airbnb, which is a good option if you can't find anything before travel, but it's a bit expensive, right? So this is the option which I did. So the way I came here was totally different. I just had 1 month to do everything, so that was very close, and so I couldn't find accommodations properly before arriving at the US. So I chose Airbnb and I had to stay there for 1 week, and within 3-4 days I was able to find an apartment here. So I wouldn't suggest going that route. That is like you're literally going at the doing everything if you don't have any option at all. So in my case it was like that, because I started in May and I had received admits on March. So I started everything, my visa process and everything, during April. So usually that's not how you should go about doing it. That's doing at very end, because typically you also won't have any other option if you get your admits that late and your program begins early. But students typically tend to arrive in fall, right, during August or September, so you have a lot of time. So you also have some good amount of time to look for accommodations and everything. Some good tools you can use to look for your housings are apartments.com, zillow.com, trulia.com, and university verified websites, right? Typically apartments and Zillow are very popular. Trulia is a emergent option here, which students use to find housing and accommodations. The second most important thing is crime rates, right? So typically most neighborhoods will be safe, right? There are a few cities and few places where the crime rates are very high, and you have to be very very careful in such areas, right? You have to make sure that you're just coming back immediately after your classes or something, right? Not staying out at night too much. These are all things which you have to avoid, right? Each university also has their own police departments, which typically goes on rounds, but it's important to not hang too much outside during the nights or so. Just have your work done and just come back home immediately. So this was for accommodation. Let's talk about some few tips and resources for students as well. So again, for students who are still waiting for decisions, and for students who have already received decisions and have confirmed their universities, so do not anxiously keep checking for admission results, right? This is the first thing which students typically do after completing all their application work. They do not do anything and just keep checking their mail, right? That's a very bad way of going about it. Just don't do that. Just keep doing your usual work, right? Whatever decisions will come, so don't worry too much about it, but just keep working on your usual stuff. And for students who have already received admits, right, ensure to update your LinkedIn and resume before arrival. This is very important, right? So you might be coming in August or September, and your internship will start in next year May. So companies usually start recruiting 1 year before, right? Even for internships, not even for full-time offers, but even for internship, they start their recruitment one year before. So you won't have much time. So it's important to have your LinkedIn and resume updated, so that once you come here, right, it's just about applying, right? So just make sure, if you haven't done that, to do that immediately. And the third important thing is to start with the visa process early if you have confirmed your universities, right? Don't wait till the last minute thinking that okay, I can get the visa and everything, but just start with the process as soon as possible, right? Because recently there have also been guidelines from USCIS that if you get rejected at all, then it's difficult to get a spot again, right? There are many rules and guidelines out there. So just make sure that you're starting with the process as early as possible, right? A few resources for students. So there's a website called admissions.fi. It's a very good website. You can just try looking at it. It will give a quick profile check. You can get a very rough idea as to whether you have good chances of getting into university or not. Again, this is not some bulletproof way of saying that you will get in or you'll get rejected. No, it is just a rough estimate, okay, to see where you stand, right? You can filter your profile using various categories such as your GRE, TOEFL, CGPA, work experience and everything. You can just go ahead and take a look at it before applying for universities. And US News is something where you can check your department rankings as well. It's a trusted website, but again, I would say don't take rankings into that huge consideration. It really isn't that very so crucial. Admission updates, yeah. So you have something called as GradCAFE and Reddit. So GradCAFE is something which I wouldn't recommend it. It's more of sometimes information is true, sometimes information is false. The best place to get your updates is from the university offices themselves, right? Just send an email. So they might have told that you will be expected to receive decisions in this date, and if that date has passed, just mail to the admissions committee, just mail it to them and they'll reply back with the status, right? But don't don't send in your application and ask them the next day. That is a very bad practice, so that will typically not look good. So you have to mail them probably when you have crossed the deadline, and if it's a very long time. Coming to scholarships, okay, so there are private scholarships in the US and there are university sponsored scholarships. So typically private scholarships are difficult to get, I would say. The reason being that these are reserved for US students, right? These scholarships are mostly reserved for local United States students, and so international students do not usually get them. But universities will have some scholarships within themselves, right? So that is a good way of applying, and that you'll typically get if your profile is very good, and it again depends on the competition and everything. But again, funding can also be obtained through applying for scholarships in India. You have GRD Tata Scholarship. You have a lot of other scholarships, Fulbright Scholarship. These are some things which Fulbright scholarships sometimes is US sponsored, but sometimes some universities have that as well. So GRD scholarships, and some foundations also give some scholarships in India. These two websites, Scholars for Dev and Scholarship Pro, are some good websites where you can take a look at some scholarships available. Again, getting private scholarships is mostly difficult because it's reserved for US students. And for housing and visa checklist, right, you can definitely watch a lot of YouTube videos uploaded, right? Many students have already gone and they have uploaded some good videos. And in fact, even for my case, I just refer to some YouTube videos for housing and visa checklist. You get some detailed list of documents, to ensure whether you are carrying all the documents or not, whether you are carrying all the utensils or not, everything. There is a huge list, right? So just make sure to check them as well. So with that, we have come to the end of the webinar again. Thank you so much for joining in. And again, feel free to post your questions right now. This is the time where you can get your doubts clarified. So feel free to post your questions or feel free to speak up directly as well.
Dear participant, yes, you have seen only a very nice person, a good alumni also. Yeah, each and every program we wish to have him to talk, deliver some talk. If you have any doubt, please feel free to ask right person. All the questions you can answer, and also how you can apply, how you can go. So correct person. So please feel free to ask the questions. Either you can post it in chat box or you can directly ask Abhishek.
Yes.
Dear students, on information.
Just a minute, sir.
Yes, sir. On information, that is Carnegie Mellon University is one of the top university in US, especially for engineering. Like your Anna University in Tamil Nadu, like that. Or again, you can put one step ahead, like IIT. Just it's like a comparison. I'm telling like that. Am I right, Abhishek?
Correct, sir. Correct. Definitely.
Yeah. So getting such an institute, admission in such an institute is not an easy job. So he got there, he is there, and it's a chance to talk with him. It's itself a great opportunity for us, for you, the students, before going there. So make use of this opportunity. That is very important. That's what that point I want to stress here. Thank you.
Yes.
During his period of study in SVC, he has done a lot of the ASM Students Chapter President, and also he has published a pattern, IEEE conference, and also journal papers. Not easy to get the good university. And also He is ninth rank, I think so. 19th rank or 23rd rank, the Tamil Nadu level Anna University. It's very difficult to get it. So very disciplined student that period. That's why I'm asking you. You share anything you want? No, please. It's a chance, very useful chance. You make use of it. Abhishek, Suruthi posted
Yes,
some
yes, sir.
question in
Yes.
chat box.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shruti, so what questions can be asked for F1 student visa interview, right? So just remembering my questions, they typically ask me, they know Carnegie Mellon, most visa officers know CMU, right? So they asked me, what do you wish to get out of the program? Right, so that was one question. And given that CMU is a bit expensive, they also asked me how will you be managing your expenses, right? So it's very important to show liquid assets in your financial documents, right? That is very important because CMU in itself is a bit expensive, so you have to make sure that your financial documents are good, right? And they just asked me what you wish to do after my master's program, and that's it. I wasn't really asked any documents or so. Even the financial documents, I just conveyed them verbally and they were satisfied with that. So typically this is what you might get asked, but apart from that there are a lot of other questions as well. You might get asked, why this university, right? Why this university? That is also again very important. And then you have to, they'll probably ask, they'll probably check your intentions of coming back, right? So you must be very careful in these interviews. You must make sure that you are conveying the intent of coming back. You should not say that I'll immediately work after masters, right? That is a easy way to get your F1 visa rejected, because F1 visa is mainly intended for studying. So I would suggest also checking a lot of YouTube videos as well. There are a lot of important YouTube videos for visa interviews as well. But typically, these are the questions asked: why this university? How will you manage your expenses? What you wish to do after your masters? Are you planning to coming back or not? And then again, there is also one more important question, right? Do you have any relatives or siblings in the US? So this is more of a trick question, right? They are checking your ability to stay within the US after your masters, right? So it's good to answer them, good to answer them truthfully. Don't lie about that. But yeah, just make sure that you're not conveying anything that says that you will be staying after your masters. So that is very important. So any more questions? Go ahead, students.
Any
Feel
more
free.
questions, please?
Hi, Abhishek. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, cool. I'll get right to my question. So, to get the
Yeah.
3-year OPT for STEM programs, we'll have to secure a job within 90 days of completing the master's, right? What
Correct.
will happen if we fail to do so?
Okay, so there are, typically if you don't find a job, you have to return back to India. That is the case. But again, there are, a lot of intermediate steps. You can probably try, which I wouldn't typically recommend doing it. You have to, probably try joining back the university as a worker, right? You can work in the university labs for some period of time till you find a job. So that is one way to make sure that your status is currently aligned with the university. It will be registered as you are still working as a university worker, right? But yeah, typically 90 days the hard limit and within which you have to find a job. But in case you're not able to find a job, this is one of the options. You can join back the university and work as a worker there for some period of time until you get a job. But again, your expenses might be low and you might not be able to earn that much as how you earn in a full-time job.
And also, did any of your friends have trouble getting the OPT?
So that happens when you apply at the end, right? So the thing with OPT is that you'll be applying it in the last semester. You have to apply before 60 days of your graduation and not later than 90 days before graduation and not later than 60 days after graduation. So this is the timeline within which you should apply. And say you are applying after graduation, right? After graduation, you are applying at the you're applying at some 50th day. That is where it becomes a problem because you can't guarantee when it will be processed. So the thing is that every university will have Office of International Education. It's called OIE. Every university will have that. and this OIE will check your dates and everything, and after you get the approval from your Office of International Education, you have to send it to USCIS. So USCIS processing will take 1 or 2 months. Literally, it will take 1 or 2 months. So you have to make sure that you're applying early, and if it becomes late, then that becomes a headache. You have to make sure that you're applying early. So that is the way you have to go about doing it.
So, what is your opinion on this? Is it easy to get a job in those 90 days after completing the master's?
So that really, that depends on the availability of jobs, as well as your profile as well, right? So it's important to have a strong profile, strong resume. So the current scenario is that the market is market and all is going good. The thing is that there are there are many roles open. That is the truth. It's not like the market is very worse or something. I agree that there is a good amount of recession happening, but it's not like you don't have anything. This is the thing, you can still apply, but again, getting or not is depends on your profile and a lot of other factors. So I wouldn't say it's very easy, I wouldn't say it's very difficult. It really depends.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for answering.
Sure. So there is one more question, which is, what are the factors considered for student diversity? So so student diversity is it becomes, it's more of a deal breaker, right? It's not like it's the most important priority, but if they typically don't, unless you are from a very underprivileged background, right? That is where a student diversity helps. So you are from a very underprivileged background, and you have helped achieve you have made significant achievements, right? Not just in terms of your academics, but extracurricular activities or a lot of other factors, right? If that is if you are coming from a very underprivileged background and you have done these things, that is where it makes a difference. But again, this will be very important at the end, and not at the very beginning of your application review. Yeah, so another question from Divya Bhavani is, why CMU, why MIS? Could you give more insights about MIS program? Right. So yeah, so good question. So the reason why I chose MIS program is because I worked for almost 3 years, and I realized that I'm more inclined towards the management aspect. So this is where work experience was valuable to me, right? It gave me a different perspective. So if I had applied after my undergrad, I would have gone for MSCS, but industry experience gave me a different exposure. So I mainly am looking for product management position. So this is the reason why I went for I chose MIS. So I also applied for engineering management programs and management science and engineering. I had got admits from Columbia and Cornell, but that was very, very expensive. That Columbia is literally in the city of New York, so that is very expensive. Living expenses becomes very huge. So that's why, again, Cornell is also very expensive, and just for 9 months. So that's the reason why I rejected those programs. And about MIS program, right? So you get to choose a lot of technical as well as business courses. So for example, in my case, I am doing a lot of courses related to technical courses. I'm mostly focused on more of business courses. So product management, project management, strategy development, and many courses related to design, technology, and business, right? This is what I'm mainly focusing on. Whereas you will also get to take a lot of technical courses such as machine learning. You also have object oriented programming courses. It really depends upon your interest. So this is what the flexibility of MIS program is. You get to choose technical courses as well as you get to do some business courses as well. So you get to experience both the tiers. So that is the big advantage why I went for MIS. And the reason why I didn't go for an MBA is because MBAs typically require 4 to 6 years of good experience, typically in a relevant role, right? So that is why the reason why I didn't apply for MBA as well, and it's very expensive. So MBA is 2 times that of MS cost, right? MBA comes down to like $200,000, which is very, very huge, right? Classes are like 1.5 crores. So that's the reason why I didn't apply for MBA as well. Good question. Um, the things you said about is, yeah. So Vinay, this is the same thing for Canada as well. Accommodation expenses will definitely again vary depending a lot on location, right? Expenses is not fixed. It again varies from location to location. Some places in Canada might be expensive, some might be really cheap as in US. For exams, when it comes to Canada, you don't have to give TOEFL, right? You have IELTS for that, right? IELTS for that. And job opportunities, typically, if you job opportunity again depends on what job opportunity it is. For example, if you're applying for technology based companies, Canada does have some good amount of companies present out there, but typically when you compare it to US will certainly be ranked more in terms of the presence of technology companies. So that is the advantage for US. But again, most of the things is same for Canada, like accommodation, expenses again depends on location. Exams is different, right? You have to give a different exam for Canada. Job opportunities again a bit different, right? Depends on your location and the availability of companies. What is the job market for PG in computer architecture, chip hardware design in US? What universities do you recommend? So Yogesh, this is a good question. So there are a lot of job opportunities in chip and hardware design in US as well. You have Intel, you have Qualcomm, right? You get to literally work with semiconductor technology here. So the job opportunities, certainly again, the job opportunity totally depends on the company, right? If you have that role open or not. But typically right now the amount of roles open is less for every domain out there. But typically, right, once the things improve a bit, you'll certainly have a lot of opportunities right here. And certainly computer architecture is something, you also have your Nvidia right here, right? Nvidia, Qualcomm, Intel, these are all very good universities. These are all very good companies. And for universities, I'm not really sure about that. I think you can just probably try googling out. But typically computer architecture is typically, you can there are a lot of specializations, right? If you choose MSCS, right, MSCS will have a specialization in computer architecture. Or if you choose electrical electronic engineering, again computer architecture might be one of the subsets in that. So programs, I would say try looking at universities which have MSCS options in them, and see if there's a computer architecture option under them as well. So even electronic engineering is a good option. So there are many universities obviously which are good for electronics, such as CMU, Cornell. A lot of universities are there. So just try going through the program's curriculum to see that. So another question by Divya is, can non-CA students get into MIS program with relevant work experience? So again, that's a good question. Obviously, non-CA students can get into an MIS program. In fact, I would say that is why the program is also actually partly designed for, right? It's important to show your technical expertise as well, right? It's not like if you're from a totally different background, you can still get into it. You have to show that you have some technical skills, you are able to do some technical work, which typically involves writing code, working with tools and technologies. So that is also very important. You have to showcase that in your SOP and resume as well. But yes, certainly it's possible to get in. So do you know any students, friends who have gotten into Intel, AMD, or Nvidia? Yes, I have. I have many of my friends into those places. So in case if you wish to connect with them, just let me know. I can probably try connecting with them on LinkedIn.
Hi, Abhishek. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you completed your undergrad and you worked for 3 years, right?
Right.
So when you exactly started your preparation for GRE, TOEFL, and all that?
So I started it in my 1 year before, exactly 1 year before. So I started in January 2021. I started in Jan 2021, and I finished up all my applications by November. Yeah, all the interviews and applications by November. Yeah, so
Okay.
January 2021 is when I started. And I gave my GRE on, I gave it on September or October, during that month.
Okay. Okay.
Both my GRE and TOEFL.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And one more question is, you
Mhm.
told that TOEFL is better than IELTS, right? Or
Hmm.
or
It's
like,
not. It's not like it's better. Where
okay.
it's more of recommended, because again you might take IELTS. Some universities might not accept it. and you have to again go and give back TOEFL. And generally, if you look at the opinions here, right, mostly students say that TOEFL is a good option rather than the other exams.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Abhishek, I posted one question now. Can you answer that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is the US inflation impact seen by students seen over there? Yes, sir. Inflation impact again in terms of job opportunities. Yes, there is some amount of impact involved. As we saw before, there aren't much roles open out there. That is the problem, and also a lot of people who are working in companies such as Google, Microsoft, are all outside looking for jobs right now. So the impact is there and it's still present. In fact, I'm seeing many companies still laying off many workers here. So it is also currently ongoing. But the only thing is that the intensity has decreased a bit. In January, in December, it was in full force. In fact, even in February. But right now, it is a bit okay. I think it is a bit improving, sir. So it's going right now. But when it comes to prices, right, grocery prices and everything, it has increased to some extent. So items have also groceries have become a bit expensive. $1 or $2 have become expensive. So that is also being reflected in those things. Oil prices, gas prices, all that is the impact.
Abhishek, one more question posted, the Divya. Please,
Yes, sir.
see that in,
Any tips you could provide to get into CMU? Is it GPA or GRE centric? So CMU is neither GPA or is GRE centric, but it's certainly not centric in any of them. It looks at your holistic profile, right? Again, as we saw the application packet before, not one component will determine your admission, right? It is not GRE or GPA centric. You must try ensuring that you have a good balanced portfolio out there. Yeah, just make sure that you're this is applicable for any university, by the way. It's not just for CMU, right? For any other university as well. Just make sure that you're apart from your exams and everything, just make sure that you're doing good internships, doing good work in internships, securing good internships, doing good research work, participating in extracurricular activities. These are all things which add up, right? Don't worry about your scores that much. Although it's important to have good scores, just don't get focused on them. Universities look a lot beyond those things. GPA and GRE is just a very minor thing, right?
Abhishek, one more thing. Kalyani, she asked a question. No, she got offer in Exim Network.
Okay, sir.
I told him to contact you.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Two of your junior got job in Exim Network. One is Kalyani. One more person is Roshni Reddy.
Oh, okay, sir. Super.
So I referred your name.
Sure, sir. Sure.
I'll
Thank you.
surely contact you soon. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
So
person.
my email, right? 1 minute. I'm posting my email. So this is my email. Feel free to get in touch. Also, you can just ping me on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn as well. So that will be better.
Please feel free to ask the question.
We have still good amount of time there, so feel free to ask your questions.
The session is arranged for you. You can get complete information about Exim Network. And one more thing, Abhishek did is he didn't resign the job here. He is working in the Exim Network at Mount Road. He asked to give job in the US. Is it okay, Abhishek?
Sir, it's going on right now. I think they are still looking for it. It's not fully confirmed, but yes, I think mostly they will accommodate.
Yeah, that's right. That option also sometimes the company they are providing that.
Yeah, so many companies, what they do is, if you are going for your graduate studies, right? The companies such as Extreme also sponsors higher studies, and many companies, in fact, sponsor your higher studies. But again, there are certain rules and agreements to that as well. Probably one of the rules or agreements could be that you might have to join back the company after you graduate. So these are all some rules. But yeah, many companies do sponsor your higher education abroad as well. Might not sponsor fully, but yes, to a certain extent of support will be there.
Any questions?
We have still 15 minutes, so feel free to post your questions. Any visa questions or any accommodation questions, feel free to let me know.
So you can ask, it's a good chance.
Hi again, Abhishek.
Hello.
And do you have an idea on which universities in US offer good cloud computing specializations?
Cloud computing specializations, again, MSCS programs to universities which MSCS are very good. So I think again CMU and Cornell, lot of universities are there, right? You have Berkeley, you have Stanford, UCLA. A lot of universities do offer these specializations. Any cloud specialization, cloud is something which will come under computer science, right? So universities that have their computer science program ranked well, and some universities might have these specializations, some might not have. So yeah, I mean, universities which have MSCS option, these are all our good choices to narrow down. Yeah, but again, just to confirm, you have to go and look into the program's curriculum for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Any question, further questions? Okay, Abhishek, thanks, Abhishek.
Okay, sir.
Now I request our head of the department to say a few words about the session. Okay, madam, I think madam is not there. Now I request the AHOD to say a few words about the session. James, sir. So now, okay, now I.
Without opening the money. Yeah, actually, it's one of the best mechanism you can able to get information about higher studies, and it's a special thanks to Jara sir who organized this one. Currently, doing on the higher studies at the corresponding country. That is very important. that persons are come and talk here, and they're telling their experience, how exactly they get admissions throughout that will be given. And today we have the Abishaik, he is from Carnegie Mellon University. As I already told in the beginning, one of the prestigious university like your IIT. IIT means even the best IIT like IIT Madras or IIT Bombay for computer science like that. So such a prestigious university is able to get an admission there, and how it got all the participants a clear idea. You can go to that height. That is very important. Okay, after studying from SPCE, you can go to that height. That confidence was, I hope everyone get right now. So I express my sincere thanks to Abhishek to join here and to share your experience with our students. And special thanks to Jana sir, who invited the all the foreigners, I can say like that, and our alumni, and shared their life experience, how they get the admissions, and what are the procedures, and what is the climatic condition. Climatic condition means, of course, it involved with money. That travel procedures, admission procedures, everything you can summarize in that 1 hour session across the various countries. And of course, I can found one important commonalities again across the different countries. Anyone willing to do higher studies in the abroad universities, what they must have in their portfolio. That's very important. That is a component of research and attempt to do some research. That part is important. That is attending some
symposium at the first level, and then attending some conferences and presenting some papers at the conferences. That is going to be the right pathway towards the research. And of course, Abhishek, as I already told, he go up to the patent, publishing a patent. That is very the highest level. The research is ladder. So I request all the foreign higher studies aspirants must take up this path and have a successful studies, higher studies. All the best. Thank you, Jana sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhishek. You are always gold to our SVC and also prominent alumni. Now, I request Rajesh Sagar to give Rajesh Sagar sir to give the vote of thanks. All alumni, all students, please stay. At the end of the vote of thanks, I will post the feedback link, so you can fill it carefully. All the details will be reflected in your certificate. The certificate will be automatically will be sent to your mail ID. Now I hand over to Rajesh Sagar sir for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan, sir. It has been such a honor to be a part of this wonderful event and also to do the vote of thanks. Myself, Dr. T. Rajashekharan, Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. On behalf of Venkateshwara College of Engineering and the Department of Computer Science, I'd like to thank the management, principal, and our beloved HOD, Dr. R. Anita, for providing this opportunity for conducting such a wonderful event for higher study students. I'd like to extend my thanks and gratitude to our honorable speakers. Day one speaker, Ms. Pavitra Srinivasan, talked about the overall cycle of the pathway to the higher studies, and the second day speaker, Mr. Ananda Tirtha, talked about the German universities needs and what to do and what not to do kind of things. And day three speaker, Mr. Harni Sri, talked about the Canadian universities, and today the last day, Mr. Abishaik Mohan, for this and don'ts about the US universities. And they all cover the entire cycle, start from your graduation to what's the importance you have to do for SOP, the statement of purpose, and letter of recommendations, and how to strengthen your resume, and the internships. What are all the things you need to take care while getting the highest proportion to get the higher studies in abroad universities. I'd like to extend my thanks to the organizing committee, the organizing secretary, Dr. P. Janardhanan sir, who is the man behind the entire show, and the event coordinator, Professor Dr. J. M. Yanishekar sir, Mr. K. Srinivasan sir, and Mr. S. Yoprabha ma'am for organizing such a wonderful event. Yeah, sir, over to you, sir, Jonathan.
Rajesh sir, for your wonderful vote of thanks. Thank you all. Now I posted a feedback link. It will be available for 5 to 10 minutes. Please fill up the details clearly. You can receive your certificates. Thank you all. I request coordinators to please stay after this meeting. Thank you, Abhishek.